going to keep it moving. We're kind of in the home stretch now. We have a couple more panels, and then we'll wrap it up. Before we do that, we're going to do a quick Slido question, if that's okay. And the question is, where are you in your .brand strategy? And looks like the options are, we've actually gone live with a .brand. We have the budget and are in the implementation phase. We have a strategy, and we are looking to secure buy-in. We're still exploring. And of course, there may be many of you in the room who also made the strategic decision to not participate in it as well. And not even on our list right now is clearly the winner so far. Yeah, it looks like not even on our list is going to kind of run away with it. I know it's an interesting topic, and there's a lot of differing opinions on .brands, and should companies invest in them? Should they not? I think the panel we have coming up is absolutely full of experts that I'm sure can share their own opinions as well. The title of the subject of the panel is Managing Complex Domain Portfolios and .brand Domain Strategies. And the speakers we have are Donna Ruggiero, and Donna is the Associate Counsel at Estee Lauder. And she manages quite a few of Estee Lauder's global trademark portfolio matters, litigation, licensing, international tax matters, anti-counterfeiting. There's very little she's not doing today at Estee Lauder, it sounds like. And she's a graduate of Brooklyn Law School and was the recipient of the Cali Excellence Award for International Legal Writing. And actually in 2014, Donna was selected as Woman of the Year for the legal profession by the National Association of Professional Women, and will receive the Girls Inc. Butterfly Award for leadership at a ceremony in New York next month. So clearly a trailblazer in her space. Joining Donna will be Cole Quinn from Microsoft. He is a senior program manager there and has responsibility for Microsoft's domain name portfolio and their TLD strategy. Drawing on Cole's background in agile and lean program management, his service teams very much operate in a framework of continual improvement, team empowerment, and growth. He serves on the board of directors for the Brand Registry Group, chairs the BRG Strategic Vision Working Group, and registry operations, as well as the Best Practices Committee. In addition, Christina Yee. Christina is the marketing manager responsible for domains and brand for Google. And she has over 10 years of experience in brand management, creative development, graphic design. She joined Google in 2007, oversees all their global domain name management issues from purchasing to acquisitions, and also works on marketing around their new top-level domains. And she graduated from Stanford with a bachelor's degree in product design engineering and a master's degree in Spanish literature. Moderating the panel is going to be Staten Hammock, and as you know, we've mentioned earlier, Staten joined the company quite recently. He's our new Vice President of Global Policy and Industry Development, which is an area that we care greatly about. So please join me in welcoming Donna, Cole, Christina, and Staten to the stage, please. Sure.
Everybody hear me? Hello. While my panelists get situated, my fabulous panelists, I'm going to take a minute to say an apology for not being here on the first day and missing all the excitement and all of the content. I heard at lunch today that the sessions yesterday went extremely well, that you all found it very valuable, and I'm sorry to have missed it because of a family obligation I couldn't miss. But I'm glad to be with you today. I'm glad to be part of the Mark Monitor team, particularly. And if I don't get a chance to meet with you today at this session, I want to have that chance at future sessions, at future forums, and I hope that can happen sooner rather than later. So this is an amazing panel of people. You heard their pedigree. You heard the companies they work for. So I hope you get quite a bit of good takeaways from this session as well. So I'll take my seat, and we're going to start with the domain management process within each of these organizations. As I talked to my panelists in advance of this panel, one thing that I found interesting is that the domain management, portfolio management roles and responsibilities, or responsibility, falls in different parts of their organization, sometimes in legal, sometimes in marketing, sometimes engineering, and so forth. So as an opening question, I'd like to ask each of the panelists to explain where they sit within their organization and how they see that as being advantageous for their company, or what challenges they see as being in that position in the company. So I'll start with Donna, and we'll just go down the list here. Go down the row.
Sure. So yes, I'm Donna Ruggiero with Estee Lauder, and I am in the legal department as associate counsel. Domain name management and protection rests with me in the legal department. We do have an online division, but the online division manages our e-commerce and our social media aspect of our company. For years, I've been trying to push out the domain name management to the ELC online division. It doesn't want to leave me, so I don't think it's going anywhere. But from a legal perspective, it's good to remain within the legal department because this way we have closer control, because I work very closely with the attorney who handles most of our anti-counterfeiting work. I do some of the anti-counterfeiting work as it relates to social media. She handles the anti-counterfeiting work as it relates to online domain name anti-counterfeiting. So together I manage the portfolio, and together we manage that aspect of it. But we have a very large portfolio, and the actual portfolio itself, I'm happy to say, is managed by Mark Monitor. I will not give away the name of the individual at Mark Monitor who manages my portfolio, because I do not want you to steal her from me, or him. But that's basically where it rests. It rests with me in the legal department, and I am a team of one. And we right now, I think we have 8,000 or 9,000 domain names that we manage, in addition to some of the social media names that we manage in legal.
So I'm Christina. I manage domains at Google. And at Google, domains management sits within marketing, and specifically within Brand Studio, which is a team responsible for the Google brand. We actually manage domains centrally across all of our Alphabet companies. So not just Google, but Verily and Waymo and X, they all come through a centralized process. And interestingly, at Google, domains management used to be part of product, but when it moved 5 years ago, which is when I took over the role, it moved into marketing because they figured out that all the requests were coming from marketers trying to figure out where to host their content and what domain to promote as a vanity URL. So primarily my responsibility is working through a lot of these brand decisions, trying to figure out what does it make sense for you to promote. Should we host it on google.com? Do we want to acquire a related domain to protect the space, or possibly to promote as either vanity URL or as a primary place to, like a separate website off of google.com? And then as we think through new companies and new products, trying to figure out that space defensively.
Yeah. When Microsoft started centrally managing domains about 11 years ago, it was actually a function of the procurement team and the buy desk. So it started out in the supply chain area, and then it drifted in through a series of reorgs over the years to go down to platform services, along with the DNS team that ran the name server platform. And then it has wound up in the data center and cloud infrastructure organization, where it's really orthogonal to the charter of that organization. And so actually I'm looking at trying to find a better home at Microsoft. I've got a few people that are interested. The marketing team and the sales team, looking through their lens, says a close alignment with the domain strategy and operations along with their URL strategy would be a great thing. The legal team is saying to have you close to us to better enforce and develop better policies. They're having a good argument there. But I think that what my third option is, I found this organization called Corporate Strategy that actually is an umbrella that cuts across the entire enterprise. And so unless I have any strong objections where my political acumen sucks, I'm going to go to the corporate strategy guy and try to see if we can figure out how we can get together.
I will say that from managing domains for a while and seeing different contacts with different companies, it seems like legal is the common place for domains management to sit. And I do work very, very closely with our trademarks team. A lot of times we'll see a domain that's being squatted on and we'll have to make that decision. Do we want to try to acquire it anonymously with Mark Monitor's help, or do we want to go after it legally? And a lot of that depends on how inflated the asking price is when we reach out. If it's something like, oh, $5,000 or $6,000, and we'll typically try to just acquire that. But if it's a lot more, then sometimes we'll go after it legally if there are legal means to get it.
And we work very closely with the ELC online marketing teams as well as the corporate marketing teams, but we also work very closely with our regional teams because in each of our markets we have regional offices or regional brand teams that are launching their own URLs and their own websites. And so we work closely with them to secure the sites. However, many times because we're quick to launch, they're ready to launch the sites before they tell us. So there are some instances where we have people who are a little bit too quick to act. They'll secure a domain, and we'll have to go through the whole process of getting it away from the web designer who took it upon themselves to secure it because they wanted to make sure that we had the asset. So we do have some of that, but for the most part, everything does come to us. But again, we do work very closely with the marketing teams to manage the portfolio and to understand exactly what the needs are for the portfolios.
And we have that similar challenge too. Every once in a while we have the rogue registrations that we really try to discourage. Because it's obviously a security issue.
Yes.
And possibly impacting the business if someone leaves the company but they own the domain. So we really try to make sure people know there is a proper process where you make the request and then we review it. And we get back to you in a timely manner, and we work with Mark Monitor to get everything secured.
Great. Let me ask the audience by a show of hands. How many of you have your domain management portfolio in your legal department? Okay. How about in the marketing department? A few hands. How about engineering? One over there in the back. How about none of the above? Is it somewhere else? IT. IT. Okay. IT. Okay. Interesting. I forgot to mention that this panel is receptive to questions at any time. So we'll just keep rolling with some of the things we wanted to share with you all. But at any time, if you have any questions about anything we're talking about or what any of the other panelists, what any one of the panelists has said today, feel free to raise your hand and jump right in. The next thing we'd like to share with you is a little bit about how it works behind the scenes. There's a lot of different tools, processes, procedures that companies evolve over time and also use from outside sources to help manage their domain name portfolios. And so I wanted to ask the panel, beginning with Christina, how Google does it. What tools do you use, and what's the process by which somebody is going to ask for a domain name, and how does that get started?
Sure. So I mentioned I sit within a brand management team, and we have a process in place where ideally whenever someone's launching a new campaign or a new product or a new company, that they're coming through a naming process where the naming team vets the name that they're requesting, and then that from there goes to trademarks where they run a legal check to make sure we're not going to get sued, or if we are going to get sued, like how likely. And then from there, we look at the domains we want to register or acquire. So it's all a central process, and we encourage people to do it in linear fashion because I don't want to go purchase a bunch of domains if it's not going to clear a legal check and if the name is not actually approved. So it all comes through a central request process. We have an internal tool to track. It really is like an engineering tool for like bug management, but we track requests through this tool, and we actually have it enabled so that we can add our Mark Monitor partners to the email alias, and then they receive updates, and we have everything stored in one place, and we have all that recorded, so we don't have to dig through our email every time to look at the history. So that's really helpful. And then from there, we help them figure out, okay, what kind of domains we want to register. I try to cut back on the misspelled domains and low-value domains, because sometimes people will say, I want to register everything under the sun, but we really just try to focus on what are the most necessary domains that we want to get without overbloating our portfolio, which is very large.
Cole?
Yeah, our process is pretty similar. We try to get engaged with the domains, with the branding and naming teams pretty early on, so that they don't end up going down a path where the domain name's already taken or has a bad reputation or whatever. And so in our domain management portal that we've built in-house, one of the functions is a check availability. Now, what we don't want is for them to use their own laptop and go out on Google or Bing and search, because there are sniffers out there that are looking to see what kind of names people might be looking for. And so they would say, hey, somebody from Microsoft's IP space is looking around at these names, and then they'll go out and buy it out from under us in that scenario. So we have API connections with several databases that will give them an instant check to see if the name that they're looking for is available. And if it is, they can then go and register it. And if it's not, they have the option to set up an arrangement for an anonymous third-party acquisition. So that's part of the registration process. It's all ticketed internally. And, we like to have white glove service, and we understand that there's a lot of questions and answers and guidance that's needed, because there's a lot of people that domains is not their core competency. And so to the extent that we're available to them to guide them through the process, our team is able to really deliver maximum value to Microsoft. We have about 5 domain administrators on the team. We also have 3 DevOps and website developers, and then we have 5 DNS request fulfillment guys that take care of the technical back end, because we manage the zone files for all of the domains that are hosted on our name servers as well.
And at Estee Lauder, it's pretty much the same. We start our domain name search process when we're searching to clear a name for new products. So it's always part of the new product search. We don't always include a new domain name with every new product that we launch, but it's always a nice to have, and it's nice to know whether or not the domain name is available. Generally, our domain names are brand names, and more so, we're more concerned about being able to have our brand names registered in the various markets where we sell, and being able to launch new e-commerce sites under our brand names. But it is part of our internal search process when we start searching, for a new brand, or also with the key products that we launch. We will have microsites and advertising sites for some of the products. We also host our own our sites on our own servers, and do have our own IT team working on that, and our developers internally as well. They're all brought in pretty early on, but then again, the registration process, then once it comes time to actually do the registration, all goes through Mark Monitor in conjunction with the team, the IT folks, so that everything gets set up at the same time when we're ready to register.
I'll also add that Mark Monitor has been super helpful whenever we are trying to research a new name. They can run a global availability report to tell us which domains that name is available on both GTLDs and also CCTLDs. And a lot of times if a team is considering a couple of different name options, we'll get the report run for those options, and if it's more available in the markets that they desire to launch in, then that will be a tipping factor.
We've done that as well. Those reports are fantastic.
Yes, yeah. And they're like always, super fast.
Yeah. They're really, really good.
Cole, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to tag on to that. So we have, I don't think I'm giving away any sensitive information, but our domain portfolio floats around 55,000 names. And that's a big bunch of names. And so one of the key things to managing a portfolio of that size. And this is about complex portfolios, not bloated portfolios. So there's some complexity here too. We want to make sure that each of those names has an owner, and we understand people move around, and we want to kind of future-proof it. So we've created a library of security groups, multiple people, owners and members that are associated with those domain names. So far, we have about 1,050 unique groups that are mapped to those domain names. And so the complexity starts to get real complicated real fast. So one of the bits of automation that we're leveraging here to keep on top of it and make sure that those lists don't experience entropy and become obsolete, we have an Active Directory tie-in called Graph API. And so basically, for any person in the organization, in the company, you can check a box, and then everybody that is reporting to that person and everybody that's reporting to that person, all the way down to see what this person's organization is. And then you can take that and then query against all the security groups that they're a member of, and then filter it out for any security group that starts with DM administration. And then you can do a join to how many domains or which domains are associated with all of those security groups. And so just by clicking this button and running a report, you have the subset of the portfolio that this person is responsible for. One of the great things that Mark Monitor has been providing us with is a live site report that gives us the resolution of all of the wwws in the root, so that we can see if a site is live, if it's redirecting to where we think it should be redirecting to. And using that Graph API filter, we're able to provide a domain scorecard to each of these senior leaders at Microsoft and say, here's how your sub-portfolio is performing. And that really helps drive conversations and helps to right-size things and gets lapse and redirection and site up and corrective measure conversations started in a way that just wouldn't be achievable if it was all manual.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really fascinating. And on behalf of Mark Monitor, if there's a tool or a report or something that you feel would be more helpful in helping you manage your domain portfolio, please let's brainstorm together about what we could maybe come up with. We're sitting on a lot of different data from a lot of different sources, and if there's something we can do to help provide some insights for you all that helps make your portfolio more right-sized or more effective or more impactful, then we're certainly open to that. So thanks for sharing, Cole. When David introduced us, he did the little quiz about the dot brand. So I'd like to ask our panel a little bit about their dot brand and what they are doing with it, what their plans are, how they've integrated it into their business. And so I'm going to start with Cole on this one and have him talk about Microsoft and their other brands and what's some thinking around their.
I asked to go first because we have the least exciting story today. And after I heard what she has to say, I said, I'm not going after her. So we own 8 TLDs. We have Azure, Bing, Hotmail, Microsoft, Office, Skype, Xbox, and Windows. And when we first started down this road, it was purely defensive. The senior leadership team said, we don't want anybody else to own this. We don't know, if we're going to ever use these things, but the plan is to not do anything with them. And so last year, I had a personal victory when that same senior leadership team started looking at some of the results that and kind of reconnaissance that are out there using tools like the Brand Observatory, the Brand Registry Group's newsletter, MakeWay.world. There's a lot of different portals out there that can show you what the world is doing with their .brand TLDs. And all of a sudden, their no's, like their N-O, no, became K-N-O-W, like we want to know more about this. And so they greenlighted pilot tests for a click scenario and a type scenario. The click would be, the premise is, if you see something ending with .Microsoft, there's a more likelihood of a click-through because there's a higher instance of trust, consumer trust. And so you're going to see that. The type scenario is to the extent that you see a URL, you have to hold it in your memory, and it's short and memorable. They're going to go somewhere at some point and type it into their phone or a URL bar, and you're going to see a higher instance of that. And you can't do that with the .com because all the short and sweet and memorable ones are all taken or expensive, right? So we've got these 2 tests that are in the pipeline. I'm having a hard time getting the ball started on those, but I hope to have some data to share with everybody. And just the attitude change is like a quiet celebration, but it's not really moving the needle yet, to be honest.
You're off to a start somewhere, though.
Yeah.
That's great. Keep pushing.
Lots
Keep
of
pushing. We'd
potential.
like to see some more .brands out there.
Sure.
Donna.
So when we started on the .brand journey, the first thing we did was speak to other people within our industry and other our colleagues in our industry to see what they were interested in doing, if they were going to be registering .brand names. And what I found at first was most people didn't even know what it was, and they weren't really up on it and had no idea Estee Lauder, what would that be? So when we decided to go forward, we decided from strictly from a defensive purpose as well, what could we defend and what could we go after should somebody try to register a .Estee Lauder? Could we defend that and take it away? And we decided not to register .Estee Lauder. So what we ended up securing were our most generic brand names so that we could secure to avoid having any problems like we have within our trademark protection world. So we secured .La Mer, .Origins, and .Clinique, 3 of our top brands within our portfolio. The brands themselves were not on board when we secured those names. They felt that going forward with a .brand would take too much of an investment to retrain our consumers on going from Clinique.com to something.Clinique. What would that mean to them? And so we did go the route and secure the .brand. So we're at the point now where we've read, our registry agreement was accepted. We're at the point where we have our landing page, and now we're speaking with the brands. And the 3 brands are a little bit more excited about it because we have some marketing opportunities. And so without really giving away what we're doing with it, they are exploring how we can best use those .brand names. And in fact, we have some brands who are actually asking, when can we register a .brand? Because they feel that they have some really good ideas for using it. So we're not quite there yet with actually moving forward with using and having websites of our own, but we are approaching that point now where we're getting to the point where we're just having those discussions. A place where when we first started this journey, I didn't think it would ever happen, because nobody had any interest in it. But the brand, everybody's always looking for innovation on the internet. So this is, I think, something that it will catch on. And I think some brands, in particular within our industry, some of our competitors did purchase .brands and then let them go. And then in having conversations, some have, I think they let some go and kept others. But maybe we'll see some of them, reclaiming them or going forward. But I think there is room for, expanding even in the consumer industry. I know that the primary uses are banking and insurance. Financial industries are using them. It's a more secure place for a .brand, but we're finding a place for it in the consumer industry as well.
So I'm definitely excited about the GTLD space. I think it's a rare opportunity, like Donna mentioned, to really help shape the internet. And at Google, I've really been trying to push our brands to adopt the ones that we own. We own a lot. We have .Google, which is launched, but we also have things like .Chrome and .YouTube and .Android, which are all of our major brands, and we haven't done anything with those TLDs yet. But last year, before I went on maternity leave, I pushed our marketing team to really think about how are we going to use .Google and what is that strategy going to be. And really, it makes sense, right? Like we have google.com, which is search and which is where we host all of our products, but it makes sense for us to talk about ourselves as a company in a different space. So for the time being, we've launched sites like diversity.google that just went live, I think, last week. We have pride.google, AI.google, environment.google, and actually the first one that launched was blog.google. So a lot of our core places where we talk about ourselves as a company, like what we do with the environment, what we do with diversity, and that has been a good strategy to, these are not like revenue generating sites, but they are places where it's all about brand reputation. And I think that, we did a small user study before we launched .google to just kind of see how users would respond to seeing a domain like careers.google. And we found that, especially when it's on print, people had no problem typing it in. We do redirect the equivalent .com, so something like diversity.google.com redirects to diversity.google to account for some of that entrenched user behavior of typing in the .com. And yeah, I'm excited to see more and more sites hopefully launched. But I will say that it took a lot of pushing on my end before leadership really embraced this as something that made sense. But the more companies that do start using .brands, the more accepted it will be. I think especially among the newer generation of internet users who aren't automatically associating every website as a .com, right? When I was trying to get this ball rolling at Google, I did talk to Barclays and to BMW and learn more about their strategies with .bmw and .barclays. So I think banks especially, there's a lot of security and fraud concerns. So teaching users to trust in a .barclays makes a lot of sense. And at Google, we also care a lot about trust and security. So that was another point of consideration. Like the more we can train people to really embrace .google as a trusted website, the better. And then to that end, this is related to some of the domain portfolio strategies we were talking about earlier, but I wanted to share this group too. At Google, we really, really discourage people from launching googlesomething.com, like random domains with our trademark word in it, because that really dilutes the google.com domain space. And it also teaches users this bad behavior of trusting any website with Google in it as legitimate. So just wanted to throw that out there in case that's not on your guys' radar. But yeah, with .brand, I think now we're looking at some of our other more generic TLDs as well, trying to figure out plans for .dev and .app. But next year, I'm really hoping to drive those conversations for .chrome, .youtube, .android, some of these other brands.
Can I tell you my favorite?
Yeah.
Com.google
Oh.
on April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
I wasn't involved with that, but that was a fun kind of practical joke where they launched com.google and everything was like reversed.
It's flipped like a mirror and they show up. So it was the backwards world of .brand.
That was great. That was
Yeah.
great. So let me ask the audience by, again, raise of hands, how many .brands do we have in here? Besides our panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See Colin's hand? Okay, all right. Well, I was in, when David asked the question, I was only somewhat surprised that a majority of you hadn't really been thinking about .brand, probably because you didn't know at the time that the first application round that occurred so many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago now, that was actually going to be a thing. But it is a thing. And Cole mentioned makeway.world is just one place where you can see what's happening in the .brand space. And Mark Monitor is preparing right now for the next application round to make available to any of you who are interested in their .brand to get their application, to help you with your application, and to try to get that for you. Now, those of you who don't closely follow what happens at the Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, which is the body that is managing the domain name system and makes available top-level domain names from time to time, it's going to be a few years out before applications are again accepted for a .brand or a .whatever else it may be. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be thinking internally. As you heard from Cole and others, at the time that the process occurred before, there wasn't a lot of people registered a .brand with the defensive posture in mind, without thinking about long-term benefits to the company. And it turns out through innovation and some pretty creative ideas in each of these companies, there is actually a great bit of use in .brand now. So be thinking about that, and check with your folks at Mark Monitor, and we can have a conversation at any point about what that looks like over the next 2 years as we prepare for another application round.
I can't confirm exactly when that's opening again.
Pardon me?
I can't confirm when that is going to open, so it's still hypothetical.
It's hypothetical, yeah. So one of the last topics I'd like to ask the panel is about, which is following on from the previous panel, which around social media, which is social media handles, and how are they handled in the context of domain portfolios within their organizations. So I'll ask the panel to give some of their insights and share their knowledge with you on that. So I'll start with Donna on that one.
So unlike domain name management and protection, social media management and the handles is that's all handled by the ELC Online teams and the individual brands. They manage their own social media marketing and only come to me when they find a third party who has a social media handle that they would like to get back. So they are responsible for managing that themselves. So I don't actually have the insight into that. They maintain their own database, although I do see the database to see what they have registered from time to time and what they're using. I do not have responsibility for that, so that is something that stays with the marketing side in the e-commerce realm. And again, it's the protection side that comes to the legal department, so it's a little different.
At Google, we have a comms team, and they manage the social media handles, of which there are already a lot. So I think they generally tend to discourage launching more channels beyond the ones we already have, but sometimes teams do ask for us to try to acquire handles, and I hope I don't get in trouble here, but I know that it's against the terms and conditions for Facebook, for Twitter, for a lot of companies to sell handles. So we actually work with Mark Monitor to negotiate a domain sale where the social media handle is included. And that's kind of how we get those acquired when need be, but it's not a huge part of our domain strategy.
In our domain strategy and our social handle strategy have in common this idea of simplify and amplify. So just like with domains, you don't want to have a ton of broad domains that are robbing yourself of traffic. You want to consolidate that and redirect to as few domains as possible to make those good high volume key value domains. And the same thing goes with social media handles. It just multiplies the effort of maintaining them, and also increases your attack surface for security and vulnerability and those types of issues. And so we're trying to, like you said, Christina, just not go crazy with domains or handles. And one of the things that came to light recently was that they didn't have a great repository to inventory the handles that we do own. And so our team offered our domain management portal to expand its original use to be incorporating the handles there on behalf of other teams.
Great. Well, we have a few minutes left. I don't see any show of hands yet. So what I'm going to ask the panel to do is impart their last token of wisdom, or last bit of wisdom or knowledge, best practices, suggestions, ideas for managing, your own domain portfolio. So, Cole, take it away.
You made a good point that if you do not own your own .brand today, but you're thinking about it, keep you in mind for when the application process comes. But I wanted to say that the brand registry group also has these observer status memberships that are for folks that don't have their TLD but are thinking about it, and they want to plug into a community of like-minded companies and entities to really get firsthand information and be as well-informed as possible when the time does come for round two, or however they're going to roll out the next application process. So I would direct you to Brand Registry Group. You can search it online, or Cecilia is actually the president of that great constituency right now, and or you can just come up and talk to me.
Just piggybacking on that comment, it's a very long, difficult process. So if you are considering the brand, start early. Don't wait till the end and to try to get it in at the last minute.
Right. Yep.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, to piggyback off of what Nicole is saying, those of you who do have branded TLDs, I would totally encourage you to think about how you're going to use it and to launch them if you haven't. I mean, I think it's an amazing opportunity to really, you own the entire TLD. You can do whatever you want, be creative. And anything that we do as industry will lift the internet up as a whole. So I think it's an exciting time. You can really kind of shape that corner of the internet. Beyond like what we've already talked about, I mean, Mark Monitor is awesome. Definitely, work with your customer service person to get those global availability reports, to talk about security. We at Google have a lot of measures in place for making sure things like google.com are secure. We have a protocol where I don't even know the password to unlock that domain. We have certain people scattered around globally who only they know the password to unlock the domain. So just thinking about security, that's something to work with your rep at Mark Monitor with to establish a protocol.
And just whether you have a very large portfolio or mid-sized portfolio, small portfolio, having a good management company, again, saying Mark Monitor has been a very great, good team for us to work with. They've been fantastic. I'm the only one in the company who does the domain name management, but I feel like I don't even do it because Mark Monitor pretty much does it for me. But it is important, though, to make sure that you have policies in place and that you remind your brands, your regions, your functions, your teams, your marketing teams of those policies to avoid having those rogue filings, to have to bring those in because that just creates much more work for everyone, and it just keeps a handle on managing your portfolio as you go forward.
Are there some questions? Mark, yeah. You have a mic for Mark?
I think it was interesting to hear.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting to hear what you guys are doing with your brand TLDs and other generics that you own. I'd be curious as to the panel's approach to registration of new GTLDs in other TLDs that they don't own and operate.
I can go first on that. So at Google, we have a lot of trademark words and terms, but we really just work with our trademarks team to narrow down a list that we target for registrations. And then every once in a while you get a GTLD that has a really, really high asking price. And at that point, then we probably only do Google, YouTube, Chrome, Android, like our very, very top brands. But we have been registering Google across every new, like when we have like google.horse. Just to protect our space. But I think there are times when we make the call like, okay, is it really worth it to pay thousands of dollars for something we're not planning on using? And would it really damage our reputation if someone did register that domain instead? So we make those calls as needed, but we have a limited list that we are targeting for all registrations.
Yeah. For us, we quickly realized that what we had been doing wasn't scalable, which is with the limited number of extensions, we would kind of let ourselves go a little crazy with typos and hyphenated stuff and misspellings or whatever. But with the introduction of all the new GTLDs, that became like a Z-axis that was not scalable to be doing that. So I got with our trademarks team and we tiered the marks and labels that we cared about. And we came up with an algorithm where we would look at how relevant the extension was to the line of business. And then we would see which tiers it would open up to, and we would look at price. And there's like this ceiling where the domains team would pick up all the defensive registrations if it was under a certain price, but anything over that we have to have a talk about, some first year sponsorship anyway. And then the outcome of that actually was a culture change where we had to be okay with other people registering things that didn't make the cut. And rather than spend all that money on defensive registrations, we felt it would be more responsible to reinvest that money into better monitoring so that we can maintain or increase our level of diligence for actual bad actors instead of trying to prevent anything happening all over the world. That's just not scalable. And then what we did was we applied that same algorithm to the previous registrations when they came up for renewals to see, hey, if we had this in place from the beginning, would we have registered this, like .sucks for $2,000 or something? That's just nuts. And so we're able to help inform the right sizing process of our portfolio that way too. That's a great question, though, Mark.
We followed almost exactly the same route, because you have to to reinvest your funding and your budgets where it's going to do the most good, and just simply registering domain names across all of these new extensions just really isn't practical. And really, what is it going to get if they're not selling products, if they're not using the sites, if they're just registering them? And we find still many .coms that are registered with our trademarks that they're just sitting there, and those are the lesser players. We're more concerned about what are the active sites doing. Are they selling products? Are the products counterfeit? Are they gray market? Where are they coming from? Those are the sites that we're really looking for, and not so much registered domain names on any .tld, ccld that isn't doing anything but just sitting there. So it really depends, on what your budget is and what your focus is. And our focus really is keeping the counterfeit goods off the websites and off the internet. So that's really, you have to focus your budgets, and again, then just protect yourself in the key extensions where you think it's most important.
Well, I see our time is up. I'm getting the red flashing light. Oh. We have another question. Sure.
The Mac.
Okay.
So we have been doing a domain name cleanup project, and we have found many domains are registered by our business partners. So we said, well, we can assign this domain name back to you, but we need to use them. Otherwise, we will lose our clients. We have been selling your products for over 10 years. So my question is, do you, like Estee Lauder or Microsoft, do you allow your business partners, particularly distributors, to register domains with your trademark plus a generic name? Would you allow them to use that? And if so, what kind of standard are used internally to determine which business partners should be allowed to use that?
Well, generally, we do not allow our business partners to register domain names with our names. So that's a general statement. There are exceptions. And that's really all I can say on that, but there are exceptions. But with those exceptions, there are standards within our company, within our agreements that we have with the retailers that we deal with and our other business partners that they must follow if they're going to. But for the most part, we'll register them and license it back to them to allow them to use it. Or there will be some kind of other arrangement that we will make, but generally we do not permit our business partners to register domain names with our name in it. It's just not permitted. And that's part of the agreement that they enter into when we enter into an agreement with them.
So within my larger team, there's also a brand permissions queue where people externally and internally can request to use our trademark. And I think that anytime a domains question does come up or someone asks, can I register Google whatever.com, we tell them no. But it's also one of those things where if they don't ask us and they're using it in a non-malicious way, then we're not going to ask them to take it down.
Yeah, same for us. And then there's the people that aren't partners but just want to tag on our name. And if they are not doing anything overtly malicious, then there's little that we can do from a trademark infringement But that's a whole different side of the business that we do partner with, but that's their core expertise of being able to make the call. But again, we don't go out and try to proactively, defensively register everything that has, that you could possibly concatenate Microsoft with, because that's just not
Not scalable.
scalable, right?
Definitely not.
But I think our partner program mirrors what Google and Estee Lauder does.
Well, thank you very much, panelists. Thank you all, audience, for your attention. And I encourage you to chat with Cole and Donna and Christina at the break or afterwards at the cocktail hour, and ask them any questions that pop into your head afterwards. So thank you all very much.